Hello, hello. Welcome to a special episode of the TMI Show. I'm Manila Chan. That over there is not Ted Rall.
No. Well, I mean, we are talking about menopause, but hormones don't do this. So no, I am definitely not Ted. I
Sor-
am Scottie Nell Hughes.
Sorry, Ted, you've never been that pretty. But Scottie Nell Hughes sitting in for Ted Rall as the guest co-host for today because we are talking about women's health issues. And I figured, it'd probably be better to have another woman on. And we'll be talking to a medical expert on this topic because obviously Scottie and I, while we are women and we probably know our own bodies at this point at this stage in life, we're still not MDs. So we thought we should talk to a doctor about some, I would say, stuff that was taboo, Scottie. I mean, only up until I think it's our generation that's kind of made it untaboo. The topic is menopause and perimenopause and middle-aged life for women. And I'm going to say this, Scottie, with all due respect to our moms, um, I think our generation, the mid 40s, looks very different than our mom's generation.
I think you're correct on that. I think it is, and I don't mean to say this just to pat us on the back, but I think we're a lot more hot. I think we're hotter. I think we're better looking. I don't know. I remember when my mother turned 40 and I was young. And I was like, my
Me
God,
too.
you're so old. Like, Mom, you're old. And she started acting old. Granted, my kids might think I act old too, but I'm still, getting extensions and my hair colored and still,
Right.
I'm listening. So I think our generation is trying to fight the aging process on every level possible. Also, because we're also having to continue, we don't get to be old. We don't get the luxury of being old in our 40s. Like past generations, they were already counting down where they don't have to go to work. Nope. We're still working for 25 more years. So we better try to at least look graceful in the office place.
Bingo. Life has changed. Society has changed. We're not getting to retire
Nope.
like our parents' generation did. And we want to look and feel as young as we did just a few years ago, right? Because, things do change in your 40s. And I get it. I embrace being in my mid 40s.
No, you didn't. Don't even give me that one, Manila. I was there when you turned 40 and you did not handle it well. And it was COVID. You were like me.
But
Don't
But I've
even.
had several years to accept it now,
It took
and
you
it's
years
settled in.
to accept.
But it took me years to accept, but I get it now. I'm a middle-aged suburban mom, and I get it. But I'm what I've always vowed was that I am not gonna go down without a fight, and I want to look and feel as young as my spirit feels.
Mhm.
And maybe that's wrong. I don't know, but I feel like that is our generation, and 40 plus has never looked so good. And I think a big part of that is because this age group of women, this 40 plus, it's the older millennials and the youngest of the Xers. We are in our 40s now, and we are choosing to define it in a different way than our moms did. Our moms were ready, cutting the hair short, getting their perms and doing, after 40. That's not what 40 looks like anymore in 2025.
It's funny you bring that up. Actually, there was a recent article that just came out last week saying I'm turning 45. I'm not getting the bob. I refuse to get the bob. In fact, I'm getting extensions. I definitely related with it because you're correct. It used to be when you got in your 40s, you cut your hair off. Now, one of the reasons that we can discuss this with the doctor that women would cut their hair off is because our hair isn't necessarily the same lush that it was when it's 20s. And so our doctor today hopefully will be able to help us with some of those solutions. No pressure or anything, but women are going and saying, no, I'm going to still wear my hair. And I think it helps because we do have celebrities that are still being embraced. People like Julia Roberts, Reese Witherspoon, that are in their 50s that look, no offense, better than some of the women in their 20s, in my personal opinion. And so that's inspiring to us.
That is true. So, with all of that in mind, this one goes out to the women out there. If you want to hear a frank conversation with a medical professional, this is the place. Because I feel like more people need to be talking about it to make this okay for our generation because our mom's generation didn't talk about it. So, with that, I'm going to bring in a medical expert, a person with an actual MD.
We need to stay at a Holiday Inn.
Right there is
Good
Dr.
morning.
Sean Bourke. He is the founder of Jumpstart MD. I'm going to pop that on the screen so people can see as well what we're talking about here. Jumpstart MD right there on the screen. I'm going to make this full so everybody can see. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me. Delighted to be here.
So you were sitting in the backstage, the virtual backstage, hearing Scottie and I talking about this. Being that you have your own clinic that focuses on all sorts of women's health and men's too, would you say that we have kind of encapsulated what your many of your patients are saying about wanting to stay young, feel good, and not let the effects of aging do to them what it did to their moms?
Oh, definitely. And I think, too, they're really motivated to come see us by personal challenges. And I'd say the primary thing that drives them to see us is, hey, things are changing. What happened to my body? What happened to my mood? What happened to my vagina, if we could be frank? What happened to my interest in sexuality? What happened to my sleep? What happened? The list goes on and on, my energy levels. And some of that is happening during midlife. The terms we'll sort of define as perimenopause, the sort of time period that approaches menopause that can start 10 years before you get there, and then menopause. And there's major hormonal changes happening that drive all these quality of life issues and eventually lead to dramatically increase health risks in major ways. So that's where we're kind of more seeing people. We sit in chairs and sit across from people either for telehealth or in clinic all day long. And it's always kind of that theme. Oh my gosh, what happened? Help me. And it's super gratifying because you can help and you can make a huge difference. And it's really, really rewarding.
So,
And
doctor, I know you're not a magic worker. I don't expect that for you, but I do believe that there's probably some things that work that will actually help in this situation. But I have to start off, and you mentioned it first. Where the hell did the term perimenopause come from? Because I swear my
Yeah.
mother's generation never used that term ever in their life.
No, you're right. And it's wonderful that it's becoming more commonplace. And because perimenopause just suggests so that there's sort of three stages that happen. You have the premenopausal, I'm still fertile, I'm having regular cycles, and sort of life is good. And then somewhere around 10 years before you hit menopause, hormones start to fluctuate in a way that can give you sort of menopausal symptoms, same buckets of symptoms, mood changes, energy changes, interest in sexuality changes, sleep changes, anxiety changes, all kinds of things. Increase of belly fat, increase of joint pains, increase in fogginess, like the list goes on and on. So all of that can happen before you actually hit menopause. And that's what we now call perimenopause, or the area surrounding menopause. Menopause is technically defined as, hey, I haven't had a period for 12 months. My reproductive period of life is over. And then you can have symptoms that persist past that. Sometimes they dissipate over time. But importantly, you're also at risk of major diseases when you enter menopause and lose the cardioprotective and neuroprotective and bone protective effect of estrogen, which is amplified by menopause or progesterone. And then that's a whole different thing. But you also have hormonal changes leading up to that with declines in testosterone that happen in a kind of linear fashion starting around your mid 30s. And those affect similar and different symptoms: mood, energy, cognitive function, libido, ability to orgasm, body composition, fattiness, muscularity, exercise performance, and so on and so on. So, anyways, back to perimenopause, it's wonderful that people are actually talking about perimenopause because it's as important as menopause and grossly understudied and misunderstood, and yet super important to treat. But because it's been so understudied, it's arguably kind of this combination of experience and art and science and sort of a trial and error process. You have all these massive fluctuations in hormones, particularly estrogen during perimenopause. You have a relative deficiency of progesterone during perimenopause, and you have a parallel decline in testosterone during this period, all of which are leading to symptoms: increased fattiness around the midline, increase in insulin resistance related to that, disease risk related to that. But it's all treatable. But it takes experience, and it takes listening to your patients so that you can try and understand what individual benefits is this person looking for, and how do I tailor a regimen that's just right for them. And then sometimes you need to kind of tinker as things you're going down the road, because it's not as simple as menopause. Menopause, estrogen and progesterone fall in the basement and they stay there. That's easy to correct. In perimenopause, you have these kind of, hormonal fluctuations that can sometimes be more gray zone and sort of harder to find, but still treatable.
Okay. Is it, and I'm sorry, Manila, I know I should give this question, but one more and then I'll give it over to you. Is it worth treating? Some women say, I did it naturally. I did it on my own. It's the course of life. Women have, just like they used to give birth and pastures on the Oregon Trail.
Right.
So is it at this stage, is it just dumb to go through this on your own and do it naturally? Are you causing yourself more trouble than you probably should handle?
I think both perimenopause and menopause are absolutely worth treating. To answer your question bluntly, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about both of them, that they can be treated safely, they can be treated effectively. Menopause is an inevitable phase of life for any woman, but suffering through it is by no means an inevitable phase of life. And the treatments, they're wonderful. They're safe.
They're wonderful. So you can imagine how the woman feels.
It's one of the most, we were practicing weight management for years before we integrated menopausal and perimenopausal care into our practice. It's super, super gratifying because you see so many positive changes in people's life. And it's wonderful to sort of play offense on symptom relief, play offense in terms of preventive health risks. Medicine doesn't do a lot of that. Medicine arguably does kind of a lousy job with prevention. And I might say a lousy job in general with kind of promoting well-being and quality of life. This is a practice that really does that, ideally complemented with other lifestyle changes, potentially medical interventions that can complement that effort too. But we're all one whole body and one whole person. So if we can approach healthcare instead of a sick care model, healthcare model more holistically, I think we'd all be better off.
I like that. I like the way that the sound of, there have been a lot of naysayers to Western medicine that say Western medicine has for too long focused on, this one issue that you have, this, whether it's a chronic thing or whatever, and they treat it like it exists in a vacuum rather than how it plays out with all the other systems in your body, right? There are multiple different systems functioning all at once. And I think a lot of Western doctors have been schooled to kind of focus that way, where you have, just your ear, nose, and throat doctor, or, just the, XYZ kind of doctor. And I feel like now we're seeing doctors like you that are talking more in the terms of whole health and how all these different systems are intertwined, because they're all of these different systems in your one body. So because there are so many components, can we walk it back and let's go back to just what the symptoms look like, first of all, for a woman when she, for all intents and purposes, let's say a 40-plus-year-old woman, what does perimenopause look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? I mean, we were joking earlier about, middle-aged women cutting all their hair off. Arguably, I would believe that's because, like Scottie pointed out, our hair feels different, or it's falling out, or, I mean, are there visual cues? Are there, what are some of the physical cues that we should be paying attention for?
Well, interestingly, the list, with the exception of menstrual cycle symptoms, the list of symptoms that you can develop during menopause kind of mirror the same symptoms in perimenopause. And I think in kind of the following categories, you kind of have mood and energy lumped as kind of one thing. And that person classically can feel a little bit more depressed, a little bit more anxious, a little bit more irritable. This is kind of during PMS, and during perimenopause, potentially worse around the PMS period of their cycle. So that's kind of mood, energy, cognition. Then on the cognitive side, you can feel foggy-headed. You might have trouble remembering things. You might have more difficulty multitasking or concentrating. On the energy level, yeah, kind of flat, kind of tired, less motivated. The couch looks a little more comfortable. I'm a little more apathetic, a little more inertial. On the libido side, this is going more into testosterone, but you can have decreased interest in sexuality, decreased ability to orgasm, and because of estrogen deficiencies, particularly as you get late into perimenopause, your vagina can be dry, intercourse can become painful. Eventually in menopause, that can predispose to urinary tract infections. Your joints may start hurting more. You may find your weight is stickier around the belly and you start to kind of gain weight around the belly. That's again associated with insulin resistance and other disease risks. That's partly where, as you said, we're one holistic integrated system. And shoot, what are we missing? I mean,
Are there any other fun you want to give us on this one? Good, great.
Do we get to keep our hair?
You get sleep, and I can't sleep anymore. I mean, that's super, super common. And then that of course, impacts quality of life, and that impacts health too.
Well,
what did I miss? What's mean PMS?
I want to keep the long, beautiful hair. How do we do that?
I mean, that can be related both to aging and sometimes in non-hormonal ways, but then potentially exacerbated by hormone deficiencies too. In terms of how we treat that, hormone therapy can have a positive influence, but we tend to use more when there's kind of supplement care, there's vitamin D, biotin, et cetera. And I find that sort of less powerful, but worth doing nonetheless. But then we use products like Viviscal Pro, which is a natural pharmaceutical grade product that can actively promote hair growth and has been shown in studies to do so at both 3 months and 6 months in really definitive, wonderful ways. We use a medication called minoxidil, which people think of as Rogaine, but in general, people I would argue, don't like using Rogaine as a foam. So we use prescription generic minoxidil at a 2.5 milligram daily dose. That promotes hair growth, I'd argue, quite wonderfully. Some people use finasteride, which people use for prostates, but we tend not to use that because I find these side effects kind of undesirable. So I actually rarely, if ever, prescribe that. People do that both topically and orally. We use sometimes a medication called spironolactone, which blocks another hormone called DHT at hair cells, and that can actually stimulate hair growth and prevent age-related hair loss. And sometimes we'll use combination therapy. So depending on how severe the symptoms are, you can start with Viviscal and supplements. Oh, hey, that's not working. Let's add minoxidil. Okay, that's not working. Let's think about spironolactone. And then, there's referrals to dermatologists for things like PRP and hair implants and so on, if need be. We rarely do that because I find that trinity of supplements plus minoxidil plus Viviscal plus spironolactone in some combination tends to work super well. People come back about 3 months later and go, yay, this is working. I'm so relieved. And that's important because
that is a lot, though. That's a lot. That's a night routine right there. And then you add on your skincare and everything like that.
It is. It's pretty simple, though. Those are all once a day.
Okay.
Simple once a day pills. So boom, boom, boom. Actually,
okay.
And you're not always doing 3 at a time or more. You can kind of go stepwise. It just depends. If the person, if you can tell this is emotionally stressful,
right,
this is almost traumatic, let's throw the book at it.
Right.
It's like, do it all. And then, but keep the faith because it might take a few months for the hair follicle to stimulate growth again.
So Dr. Bourke, I'm sure you've seen, along with, all the clinics that are starting to pop up around the United States, because there's obviously opportunity, there's a need. You're seeing a lot of the online, like the Nutrifoils, and there's all these different online hair care.
Hone Health, for example.
For hair. Is that just basically vitamins mixed in together?
I mean, Nutrifoil, a little bit like Viviscal. Yes, there's sort of supplements, but supplements that I believe have been studied and showed, at least in the case of Viviscal Pro, has been actively shown to promote hair growth, and actually dramatically so. So we've tried to rely on things that are quote unquote evidence-based or scientifically based and tend to avoid things that aren't. So I'm not here to promote Viviscal.
Right. Oh, no. I know that. But that's the problem. Everybody's got a solution. I'm sure just by having this conversation right now that I'm going to have 1,000 ads pop up on my social media off of hair loss or anything else. I want to backtrack. You mentioned something about the way women know if they're in perimenopause or menopause is based off their cycle. But with the effects of birth control, I'd like to say that the generation of women in their 40s are probably the first generation, possibly those in the 50s, that have spent the majority of their life on some form of birth control.
Right. No, great
Has
point.
that had an effect, do you think, on what we're seeing now on the hormones?
You know, I mean, it can help certainly to control people's cycle and obviously prevent conception. This is more anecdotal, but I find people on OCPs or people sometimes on Mirena IUDs, as an example, or other forms of IUDs, you see a suppression of their overall hormonal axis, including their testosterone levels. So I find when we measure testosterone levels at their initial visit, I'm always shocked at how low sometimes the free testosterone level is in women, either on an oral contraceptive or on an IUD. And they're almost always expressing significant symptoms from that. Again, that kind of flat, tired, inertial, libido's in the basement. I'm getting fatty around the midline. So maybe that's related. Now,
let me just stop you there. That's my issue. I'm one of those. I've had a Mirena for 18 years. Mine just graduated, and my lowest level is my testosterone. So you literally just.
I would argue, and again, this is more anecdotal.
But you proved the point. She said that you shouldn't be this low, but I think that's a pattern that maybe they're seeing.
I see it all the time. And we, by the way, we didn't mention this. You asked about perimenopause. We skipped sort of, well, my periods become irregular. They might become lighter. They might become heavier. They might become less frequent or more frequent. That's another piece of the puzzle.
Inconsistent periods before they vanish entirely.
Yeah, and then by definition, you have to have gone 12 months without a cycle off OCP.
Consecutive.
Yeah, to be technically defined as now I've hit menopause. Plus my FSH, or follicle stimulating hormone, has climbed above 50. And what you'll see in that pattern is the estradiol or estrogen level and the progesterone level become undetectable. Yes, the FSH is over 50. I haven't had a period for 12 months. Technically, I'm now menopausal. And I'm there for the rest of my life. People think I got through menopause. Well, biologically, menopause is defined as a lifelong state of progesterone and estrogen deficiency. It lasts the lifetime. And I would argue it should be treated, and it should be treated as soon as one gets into menopause, assuming no contraindications, etc. And not only to promote quality of life, but again, to prevent major health risks.
That is an excellent point. That literally just dawned on me now that you pointed out that people act like perimenopause or menopause is like this phase, and then you get to the other side of it and somehow it's different.
Yeah, no, what they'll often say in their mind, so post-menopause is technically the period after menopause. Peri is the period before, and menopause is the day you hit the 12-month mark. But people often say, I'm not in menopause anymore. My hot flashes or night sweats have gone away. And that's where we come back to no, if you think about it biologically, this is a lifelong state of progesterone and estrogen deficiency. And that has negative untoward consequences, sometimes on your quality of life / symptoms, and most certainly on some of your health risks in big ways, brain, heart, bones in particular. We can chat about that.
Let me ask you a question, Dr. Bourke. When we started with the hair, let's talk about another symptom that I think that a lot of women experience. And before we get to the mood, because that's the big one, my husband would say the biggest change has just been the cloud. But I'm going to talk about skin texture.
Yeah.
I mean, I have pockets of fat where they weren't before that they don't need to be again, and things moving around. What about skin and body composition? What changes are to be expected?
Like elasticity.
Yes.
If we go, let's do body composition first. So as you become more estrogen deficient, transitioning into menopause, and then becoming kind of estrogen undetectable on menopause, the body's predisposing to gaining weight, particularly around the midline, to some extent the buttocks. So you're lowering your center of gravity. If that makes any sense. And the challenge with that is, again, thinking holistically, that's associated with insulin resistance, that thing that predisposes people to eventually diabetes, as well as hypertension, high blood pressure, systemic inflammation, cancer risk, Alzheimer's risk. Like all that central intra-abdominal belly fat becomes kind of pathologic when present in excess. And that's part of the challenge of menopause. Even dietarily, you'll see women constantly say perimenopause, menopause. The diet that used to work for me doesn't work anymore. Well, I'm becoming more insulin resistant. I'm becoming more carbohydrate sensitive. And in parallel, this non-menopausal testosterone is declining. And that's also predisposing me to fattiness. The growth hormone that I had as a teenager is no longer as present. That's predisposing me to less muscularity, more fattiness, etc. So that's the big body composition change. I'd say, yeah, more fat around the midline in a way that can be super frustrating and regrettably associated with diseases that we worry about on a longer term basis. And then on the skin side, sort of same idea, but estrogen deficiency predisposes to dry skin, thinning skin, lack of connective tissue under the skin. So easily, skin tears, particularly as we get older. And treatment, and we like systemic therapy. So that's sort of whether that's oral, transdermal, pellet, etc. Like there's lots of options, but we like systemic therapy because the skin needs estrogen, the vagina needs estrogen, the brain needs estrogen, the heart needs estrogen, the bones need estrogen. But it helps. You even see that in patients that we see when they come back for their follow-up visits. You can they get this sort of salubrious glow from estrogen because their skin becomes more vibrant and vital.
Is that what they call the pregnancy glow?
That could be related. There's a big progesterone factor there too, because progesterone is kind of a feel-good hormone, assuming they get out of some of these trimesters where they're wanting to throw up all the time and so on. But yeah, eventually those high progesterone levels can lead to improved mood and this kind of wonderful glow. You see that in postpartum depression too, right? Where you have this plummeting of your progesterone that was helping you keep the baby alive. And suddenly a woman finds herself on her heels. Oh my God, what happened? My hormones have changed massively. And now I'm, terribly depressed. It can be tough.
Okay, since we're on this topic, another relatively new term, cortisol. And cortisol, the big thing now is, I am suffering from cortisol overload. I have too much cortisol. I need to go through I need to shed all the cortisol. Tell us about what is cortisol? Is this a fad, or is there actually real science to back up the fact that it can be a problem these days?
I think we live in an epidemic of stress, right? Even World Health declared that we have this epidemic of stress and mental health challenges and so on. Cortisol can be related to that in a kind of non-specific way because cortisol is a stress hormone that we'd release in response to our fight and flight sympathomimetic kind of response to the lions trying to kill us.
Right.
Having that chronically present can, yes, be bad for your health. I find it's kind of used in ways that I don't always think are totally evidence-based and sometimes a little bit voodoo. But most people, if you work them up for a cortisol deficiency or excess, you're going to find the workup's actually pretty normal. But it's not to say that people in chronic stress don't have sort of non-specifically high levels of cortisol that may negatively impact their health.
So this idea that my face is bloated and bigger because of cortisol,
I think that's pretty rare. I mean, those are like real diseases kind of thing that most of the people that we're talking about don't have those diseases.
Okay. That's good. Yeah, because there's so many, there's products out there that
you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, there's products that say, take my cortisol cleanse, take my cortisol pill, my drink every night, and it'll drain your lymphatic system, which will drain the cortisol. And once again, nobody has time for that. We need
Sounds like voodoo.
It does.
Some of the hormones, I might argue, DHEA is one that's like a testosterone-like hormone. It's actually a precursor to testosterone. That can potentially positively impact cortisol levels too.
What is that? Sorry,
DHEA. That, like cortisol, is manufactured in the adrenal gland.
Okay.
And anyways, it can have a potential positive impact on cortisol levels and cortisol health. But yeah, I'd say there's a lot of voodoo in that kind of cortisol diagnosis.
Yeah, I feel like that's a little woo-woo and not scientifically based. And that's why we're talking to you, because you're the MD here, and we see all sorts of stuff on TikTok, and we see stuff on Instagram, all this stuff promising some magic fountain of youth that's totally free and not painful, and you could blend whatever beet juice and kale, and suddenly you're going to be 25 years old again. And I believe there is obviously a healthy eating component to looking good and feeling good. I think that goes across the board for any age and any body, male or female. But one of the things that struck me when you were talking was talking about how when the hormones change, specifically for a woman, that the brain fog, and you said that these things are protective of your brain. Can
Oh,
you
yeah.
go into that a little bit about what happens to, like, why am I suddenly, I mean, I felt like 6 months ago I was fine, and I'm mid 40s now, and suddenly I'm forgetting names, I'm forgetting places, I'm forgetting, I
Yeah.
mean, the things I should remember, I can't recall. Why
Yeah.
is that happening?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's hormone receptors throughout the brain, estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, etc. And as those levels change, that's one of the side effects. Presumably that's changing your neurotransmitters, and that's making us feel foggy headed, have difficulty remembering things, difficulty concentrating. Um, what we do know, so the why, that's complicated.
Mhm.
But what we do know is that potentially rejuvenating those hormones back to youthful levels with, and you had the term bioidentical, I think, up here, with biologically identical or molecularly identical versions of hormones can mitigate those symptoms, and pretty dramatically. Um, I find testosterone actually can make a huge difference with brain fog. Um,
Really? For women?
Absolutely. Thyroid actually as well. A good night's sleep can, of course, make a difference, as that's a confounder. And oral micronized progesterone sedating and actually really promotes a good night's sleep. So that can have a positive impact on brain fog. But also to your point, we were just talking about chronic stress, sort of mental health related to that. Mood disorders are exacerbated during perimenopause and menopause, much, much more common.
Hmm.
And hormone therapy can really prevent those from happening, delay those from happening, mitigate their effects. And sometimes, so many women, they'll go to the doctor and they're anxious, they're depressed, they're this. Here, take this SSRI. Take this
Yes.
Advil or Lexapro or Cymbalta or whatever it might be. But you're not really addressing the root problem. If the root problem is hormonal, well, let's treat the root cause. And often you can get away without an SSRI that also might lead to weight gain. That also might, exacerbate your insulin resistance over time, et cetera, partly because of that abdominal fat and so on. So to me, it goes back to what you were talking about even initially. How can we treat this person in a systematic biologic systems approach, more integrated and holistic way? And some of that's with native hormones that decline naturally as we age. We restore them to youthful levels. People feel and function better. It's not a panacea because there's other things that they need to do. You talked about eating well. Uh, and no, there's no one size fits all diet that's great for everybody or just right for everybody. So that's another sort of challenge dietarily. How do we, that's something we do at their initial visit too, because we do a pretty broad set of laboratory studies, blood pressure, body composition analysis, and so on.
Mhm.
You can see a window into kind of what diet might be right for an individual, looking under their hood at some of their metabolic health labs and so on, and saying, well, you're becoming more insulin resistant, you're becoming more carbohydrate sensitive. Maybe you'd be better off with a little lower glycemic, but real food-based
Mhm.
approaches.
It's interesting that you bring this up, Dr. Bourke, about how there's not a one size fits all, because in lots of conversations that I have, and including with my own doctor, luckily she's phenomenal, is that these are like, well, I tried the cream, it didn't work for me, so it's not going to work for you. Or I tried pills, it didn't work for me. And where the creams work great for me, a pill works great for me.
Right.
There's not a simple solution for every single woman. So
Yeah.
just because it didn't work for your friend doesn't mean it's not going to work for you. Correct?
No, absolutely. And it's not only will it work for me, but what do I want to do?
Right.
Some people don't want to put a cream on. Well, that's okay. Let's talk about alternatives.
Mhm.
But yet, to us, the delivery mechanism is relevant if you have certain health risks,
Mhm.
because there's certain forms that are going to be safer and more effective for certain people with, let's say, a predisposition to blood clots or a history of cardiovascular disease or, just those are kind of two good examples. Then they're better off with certain delivery mechanisms, different
Like
forms.
what specifically? Like,
So as one example, one can argue that transdermal estradiol, like your patch, or maybe not your patch, but
I do the cream. I've got the cream that you put on.
cream would be an example of transdermal.
Mhm.
Anyways, that's a form that is arguably safe for women who might be at higher risk of cardiovascular disease than potentially oral. So that's all about individualizing care. But you were also talking about that didn't work for me.
Right.
Some forms are going to work better for other people in terms of symptom relief too. And it's also the combination of medications or combination of hormones, and then using, in my opinion, not everybody does this, but using levels to try to determine. So using blood tests following whatever you start the person on, or when you change a dose, to see if you hit the optimal therapeutic target. Are they having any untoward side effects? Do I need to tinker here and there with higher dosing, lower dosing, different delivery mechanisms, etc.?
From what I'm hearing, Dr. Bourke, is you have to have somebody who cares. This is not something like you can, they have lots of weight loss clinics that you walk in, you pay $99, you get a thing of pills. This is, you actually have to have someone that is looking at your specific levels. I go every 3 months to get my blood work done.
Right.
She's right on.
Someone investigate, basically. You have to act sort of as like an investigative journalist almost for case by case.
Yeah. No, absolutely. You're trying to do sort of serial monitoring to see how are they doing, what's going well, where do we have room for improvement, what might not be going well, and how do I potentially play with things in that regard. I would say labs every 3 months. That seems a little, at a certain point in time, hopefully you find a baseline treatment plan that's really working well for you. And then frequency of labs can kind of diminish. We insist on kind of close follow-up labs 1 month. Then if adjustments are made, then we do them again in a month, et cetera. But once we hit a good program that's working, then we'll do kind of annual labs. Or if major changes in dosing, then we might do some other labs. But
Dr. Bourke, am I on this for the rest of my life? Am I going to be on this till the day I die in my 90s?
So I would argue kind of you take it until you turn 110 or stop breathing.
Oh, good. Okay.
Whichever comes first. Or, of course, if new information comes out to say that's a bad idea for you as an individual, well, then we could change our tune on that. But yeah, I would argue, started early and providing you benefit in quality of life and health risk mitigation. This is something that, yes, should be treated as kind of longevity medicine.
Okay. So women should look at this. For example, we have it on screen here. Jumpstart MD has 14 locations throughout California. So is this, more and more, I feel like we're seeing more similar, similar longevity, overall wellness clinics popping up all over the country. You've been at this for quite some time. It looks like it was established in 2007. So you've kind of been ahead of the curve. Now we're seeing a lot of these clinics starting to pop up because people are more interested in their overall health and wellness and treating whatever condition they have is not just a momentary, period in their life. That this is for, if you want to continue feeling good, looking good, that it's a long haul investment. And I feel like a lot of people aren't aware of that yet, that they think, okay, I'm going to do this for a couple of months and I'm going to feel good and then I'm done.
Yeah, no, I think if you think even health more broadly, it's a lifelong investment. And it's something that we need to participate in personally in our own health.
Actively,
absolutely. And then what we want to do is put together all these wonderful tools that can help more precisely predict and personalize care to, expand people's health span, expand their lifespan, and ultimately have those 2 points converge. That's kind of the beauty, right? Like you can live a long life. And in fact, women tend to live longer than men, but their last years tend to be unhealthy. So their health span is shorter, but their lifespan is longer. And that end period can be really tough. So we want to try to get their health span and their lifespan both to expand and converge. And hormones can be a big part of that. So, of course, it's dietary elements, fitness elements.
While we're on the topic of all these various, I don't want to call them online practitioners, but there are a lot of things that are popping up on social media, stuff like Hone Health, for example, that I think they focus on men. I'm not sure. But a lot of these individualized care experts are popping up all over the place. And like I said, you've been at this a long time. Your first clinic started in 2007, so almost 20 years that you've been focusing on the more individualized care model. Why are we starting to see so many more of these kind of copycat, I guess, virtual healthcare models? Why is everyone moving to this model, and is that a good thing?
Well, I mean, certainly the pandemic accelerated this transition to telehealth because people became so much more accustomed to. I mean, this is a great example, actually. Here we are on video conference having this
Yes.
conversation. So I'm assuming that's part of that same trend. And then the need is just so obvious. The science is present to show that we can improve quality of life and health in people, and yet the practice of medicine isn't necessarily following the science because maybe it's Women's Health Initiative was 2002. We're at least 20 years behind the science at this point in time, and that's not uncommon. So there's an opportunity there if people aren't. In fact, we sort of hear that story a lot in clinic too. I'm so appreciative of what you're doing because I didn't get this at my fill in the blanks. And that's not to denigrate any other doctors.
Sure.
But it is to say, yeah, I don't think we're currently meeting, in this case, women's needs. And so there's opportunistic capitalism pursuing that need, and some with better practices, obviously, than others. But I don't know if that answers that question.
I've got some male stuff going on here just because I feel like that really exploded over social media, over the pandemic, where the so-called manosphere took over.
Yep.
And it took over this last election cycle. That was, you got people like Andrew Tate talking about this health thing, and you should do this health thing, and people want to look like Andrew Tate. He's over 40 years old, but granted, he's a professional fighter.
Yeah.
Not most men can look like that. And I want to point out that your clinic also deals with men too. And you can help men as well. But this stuff, I mean, they're talking about, all this low T, and you can, do this stuff, virtual health. And is this basically the male version of what we've just been talking about the past 30 minutes? And do men really need to manage that decline as well? I mean, I'm a middle-aged wife. I've got a middle-aged husband. This is stuff we all want to know about that people are hush about.
Great question. So women go through perimenopause and menopause. Men go through andropause. Women go through andropause too. And I actually sort of facetiously tell patients that we see, gosh, this can be couples therapy. And I say that because lots of people are out there, it's sort of the middle of their life, and they're kind of going, ooh, what happened? In some ways, what happened to this relationship in different ways? Stop spending the money on the therapist. Do this, see if it helps.
Wow.
The answer is it often helps quite a bit. And not just sexually, although sexually can be part of it, but people feel better and they sleep better.
And they have the energy to do the dishes and the yard work and clean the garage.
We're nicer to our spouses, right?
Interestingly, they are. I mean, people think testosterone is going to make people sort of hostile and aggressive.
No.
I find it actually makes them less anxious, calmer, kind of more at peace. And so, it's ironic. If you give them too much, or you give them the wrong kind of some synthetic version, sure, you could have some sort of roid rage kind of thing. But typically we're fine with native testosterone for both men and women. They tend to feel a lot better. And women will say too, I'm not hostile, but I am more assertive. And I like that because previously people were walking all over me like a doormat. And now I feel more confident and I feel more energetic. And I feel like I can, lean in a little bit, to use a term.
Wow.
But I think you hit the nail on the head, doctor, when you mentioned about how couples go to therapy thinking there's something wrong in their marriage. No, I think there's exactly, it's the biology of it. And I've seen it personally with friends, but also my own household. When my husband was on testosterone, he had the energy to be with the kids, to do the laundry, and he wasn't just sluggish. I'm like, he was on top of things. His brain was on. When he got off it, we've seen a different, and it's the same thing with me as well.
Stop fighting midlife biology. That's the thing. And it treats so many different facets. You're talking about all of them: your mood, your sense of well-being, your energy level, your motivation. If you like exercise, your ability to perform with exercise and your recovery from exercise and your response to that over time so that you become stronger, more muscular, less fatty, etc.
Men and women both. I mean, I feel like we have to point out to the viewer that, men and women we're either XX or XY. There's testosterone and estrogen in all of us.
And here's a great statistic, which is interesting. Testosterone's at a higher concentration than estrogen in women for the vast majority of their premenopausal life.
What?
Just as important in women as it is in men, and yet we think of it as a male hormone. In fact, there's no FDA-approved testosterone treatment for women. I believe to date it's still only approved for men, which doesn't make any sense at all. It's just as much a female hormone as it is a male hormone.
Wow. This is
Does that sound sexist?
That is fascinating. But why what is the difference between approval for use in men? I mean, can it be used off label for women?
Well, it can be used off label, but to your point, it's off label and it's still got lots of stigma around it. This is, treatment for men. That's part of the under-researched aspect of both andropausal and menopausal care. It won't stay that way forever for all the reasons that those of us who've been doing this for over, a decade, we see so much benefits, and you can tell it helps. It's sort of trying to treat, yes, quality of life things, but also body composition. Body composition can help treat the insulin resistance by decreasing your fattiness, improving your ability to do exercise performance, et cetera, and that can promote health. But I would assume it will be approved for women in time. I do think there's kind of a sexist model out there.
Speaking of approval, I think that our audience needs to know the majority of places, and maybe you get, as it's been explained to me, majority of this is not covered by insurance. And that might be a blessing to you, because I heard a doctor's working for insurance. It's a pain in the neck. It's hard.
Yeah.
And I get it, but it's expensive. I mean, this is about $100 non-insurance covered every month. I would hope there would be something down the road that the medical profession say, we need some help with this.
Yeah, 100% agree. So here's a challenge. And if we hone in on testosterone for a second, the range of normal of free testosterone in women, which is the one that binds to the receptor and does something, it starts at 0.1. And when you were 20, it was like 8.5 or 9. So you have this range that's vastly wide. And think about that for a second. Unless you're 0, you don't officially get a diagnosis of low testosterone, because the normal started at 0.1. So we've got this challenge within medicine right now that we really don't respect this idea of low testosterone can be symptomatic within a normal range, a low normal range, and treatment to the high end of normal, arguably for a 20-year-old, can pretty vastly improve quality of life and indirectly help address the challenges of insulin resistance / metabolic syndrome in the country. But yeah, that may change too over time, but we'll see.
Well, apparently we're not there yet with the insurance. Obviously, people angry with how insurance doesn't want to cover anything, much less trying to extend your life or make you feel better for longer. So I think, I feel like, unfortunately, we're a long ways away from that. But
the challenge with the insurance companies, their churn is so quick. They churn through patients every 18 to 24 months that they're not so willing to invest in preventive care, because the company who'll get the benefit is the downstream insurer that the patient just switched to. And so I think that's part of the reason that preventive care has never really been given its due.
Speaking of preventive care, I have a daughter. She's 18 years old. At what age is there anything that young women in their 20s, or even that have had a baby early on, that they can start doing early on that will help them through this process 10 years later, besides just wearing sunscreen and lotion?
Well, in terms of this process, I'd say get educated.
Okay.
And, Jumpstart created a website called menopausecare.com. That's really dedicated to try to educate perimenopausal and menopausal women to answer questions, to give them treatment options, to help them make an individualized decision based on proven science to best promote their health and well-being. And that menopausecare.com has an AI tool called Noor. Noor in Persian and Arabic means light. And so we're trying to shed light on this area of misunderstanding and misinformation, because a little light, of course, can go a long ways. And that might be something, there's other resources, of course, too, but I think menopausecare.com is a wonderful educational resource that can give people evidence-based insights into, am I going through menopause?
And I think taking the stigma from it. I mean, Dr. Bourke, you know this.
Yes.
I'm sure you have women in your life that everybody thinks that, oh my gosh, you're going through menopause. You're going to be wearing muumuus every day, which not to lie, I do have a couple of muumuus. But that, you're now officially old. And I just don't think I think we're breaking that glass ceiling, that definition that you're not old just because you're going through it. And I think the stigma is coming. I think social media is helping.
And we appreciate doctors like you having the temerity to dare talk about it with two middle-aged women in such blunt frankness and science-backed.
We love this, honestly. We love this practice. And part of our mission is to break the taboo with evidence-based care. And in ways that, and this is why it's so gratifying, you see this before you, these transformations. You promote their quality of life, you promote their well-being, and in ways that I don't think is always appreciated. I was an ER doc for 15 years before I started Jumpstart. You're preventing those things that we used to see every day in the ER. The wrist fractures, the hip fractures, the lumbar fractures, whatever it was. These are big deals, actually. The strokes, the urosepsis, the heart attacks. What else? What am I missing? The Alzheimer's. Like, it's all related. And to me, that's really tangible because I spent so long treating patients with those diseases. So many of those people, this could have been prevented so that they could have long, healthy, fulfilling, high quality lives.
So I just had a friend text me. I said, I was talking to Dr. Bourke out of California about this. And she said, is there a difference between menopause and perimenopause for women who have not had children?
No.
Oh.
There's no difference. We're all going to say
no. Yeah, you're going through this transition that, to the previous statement, is inevitable at some point, and it will be preceded by perimenopause. Some women will be more symptomatic than others. Some women less symptomatic. That's true for menopause too. But menopause will happen, and perimenopause will precede it.
So no matter what, pregnancy, either having babies and the hormonal change does not affect you. You're going to go through it. And it could be really bad or really good, just depending on your genetics.
Yeah, that's right. I think it's more likely defined by, what were your genetics in terms of the timing of your menopause. There could be other factors, but I don't think pregnancy is going to be a big one.
Is there a menopause? Is there a men's support group for, my husband would like to know.
Andropause.
No, but is there a men's support group for husbands whose wives or their girlfriends are going through it? Because
that's a great question. I mean, we don't have a support group. You could ask that question to Noor, actually, on menopausecare.com. It'd be interesting to see what does she say. But shoot, I'm not aware of that, but it's an interesting idea. Men need education too.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yes.
Need effective individualized treatment. Honestly, what you think about midlife divorce rates
has a lot to do with
darn common. This is when it's happening. Midlife suicide rates. Pretty darn common.
Oh my gosh.
These are sometimes, again, these are aspects that are related to the fight with biology that we're facing as we go through this midlife transition.
And what they're calling gray divorce, I'm reading that there might be a connection between the people's hormonal changes in midlife, in menopause and andropause, that is actually the driving force behind what they're calling gray divorce, which is this midlife divorce, because the kids are now off to college, and you don't even realize that your hormones are all over the place, whether you're the mom or you're the dad, but your hormones are everywhere. Both of you, both parties, their hormones are everywhere. And now
we've treated these couples at midlife, and they come in for dual consults, and they hardly want to talk to each other, let alone having relations. And then they come back 3 months later holding hands and smiling, and it's like,
get out of here.
It's very gratifying. I don't want to oversell it, because that's not fair. That's a wonderful, fun story, but I've seen it over and over again.
Well, because I think also goes that, don't take this the wrong way. They say women get finer with age. I don't know if they're necessarily talking about our skin. But, men, what's the average age for andropause that you're saying? Is that
andropause?
That's not 40. Men are still in their prime.
So the average age of menopause is 51.
Okay.
And then you've got kind of plus or minus 4 to 5 years on either end. But for andropause, it's not like a sudden stop. So it's more like this gradual decline from kind of linear decline from kind of your mid 30s.
Okay.
In women, menopause, perimenopause exacerbates that transition. That has to do with this thing called sex hormone binding globulin, but don't worry about that. It just makes it worse right around the same time.
So more or less, you can basically, we can sum it up to be right around late 40s, early 50s, where both parties in the marriage are.
Well, but you go back to that individualization. We've treated women and men as low as their mid 30s. I don't usually treat below that. And they're symptomatic and they have lab values that suggest they have good reason for that. And then we'll treat them and they'll get better. And so there's a wide continuum of kind of, people can become symptomatic in their late 40s or their early 50s. Some people can become symptomatic in their early 40s. Some women can go through menopause in their early 40s. That's called premature ovarian failure. And is a great example of health risk with that. Those women are even more predisposed to osteoporosis, heart attack, strokes, and Alzheimer's because they've lost that estrogen protective effect, neuroprotective, cardioprotective, bone protective of estrogen even earlier. And they arguably need treatment even earlier because, again, the sooner you go through menopause, and I would accompany that most of the time by treatment with testosterone, the better are you off in terms of health risk mitigation and
Wow.
quality of life.
Another question that just came through to me was,
We need to let Dr. Bourke go. We've been.
one more question. This is very important. This might be here what saves it. A woman just asked me, will my Botox and my fillers, are they not as effective after when I'm going through menopause? Does my body metabolize it differently?
I wouldn't say that, but I would say that skin health can diminish for the reasons I was saying, because estrogen has a beautiful effect on skin in terms of moisture and thickness. Think about vaginal wall thinning and pain with intercourse because of dry atrophic vaginas. That's the same process that's happening to some degree on your skin. It's just, it's estrogen related, and treatment is estrogen.
Wow.
Okay.
I mean, just this conversation, I'm so grateful for, not only because I'm in that phase of life myself, but I feel like because having been Scottie and I both having had, a lifelong career, 20 plus years in media, that there's never been this sort of extensive conversation around this topic, especially for women, because women are so, we've been socialized to be shy and more demure about it and not have this conversation. Scottie and I are not like that.
Okay, we're not shy and demure. We'll ask.
Yeah. It's interesting though, we find women are more willing to reach out for help, whereas men tend to kind of suffer more in silence.
Yeah.
Certainly true on the weight management side. Men are kind of more.
That's why men die first. They don't seek out medical care.
Yeah, could be.
Or the women don't get on hormones in time. Anyway,
well, that is something I've not thought about. This has opened up a whole new can of worms for me to dive into and explore. That maybe, as for many couples, maybe it's not that you need to file for gray divorce. Maybe it's that both of you are going through this phase of life. This, not a phase, we shouldn't say that. This new stage, this new era of life,
Yes,
where both of you might actually need hormone therapy in order to, maybe your marriage isn't failing. Maybe you don't actually hate each other. Maybe it's that your hormones, I know after having had a baby, when I had my son, I was so hormonal and cried about everything and hated my husband for months. Loved the baby. Considered throwing him out the window sometimes or sending him back to, on the Pelican or whatever. None of that ever happened, but I understood that those were hormones that were, raging through me and trying to find its balance. But that happens again when you get to this midlife stage, and that, maybe a lot of these marriage counselors, maybe this is something they need to be educated on as well.
I 100% agree with that too, because that could be part of the solution. And it's not to say they don't have a role either, of course. But it is to say this could be very complementary. And in many cases, yes, we're fighting biology.
Wow, wow, wow. Dr. Bourke, we'll leave that there. I hope you'll come back on with us again. I want to read your full bio so everybody understands you're not some back alley doctor. Dr. Sean Bourke is the founder and chief medical officer of Jumpstart MD. Dr. Bourke launched Jumpstart MD with a mission to help individuals achieve sustainable weight loss, hormone balance, total health optimization through his compassionate concierge style model of care. He earned his medical degree from the University of Southern California, go Trojans, medical school, and completed residency at Stanford University School of Medicine. Obviously, no slouch. He is certified by the American Board of Obesity Medicine and has held leadership and research roles in multiple top tier medical institutions. And it certainly sounds like it because you know your stuff. And you let us grill you for an hour, what much longer than I promised to have you on.
Yeah. I love the topic, and I really appreciate the time. I really enjoyed that. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Bourke. And I got to ask one last thing. Now you're in NorCal because you did Stanford, so you stayed there. But come on,
I'll be in Irvine on Thursday.
so SoCal's so much better, though, right? I mean,
I love them both. I'm a California bear. Love this place.
I'm a SoCal girl through and through. So there we go.
On Thursday, I'll visit the Irvine office, and I will say I love going down there every time. Partly because we have such a great team down there, but also because it feels nice.
It's better weather than NorCal. I'm just gonna say it's consistently warmer and less dreary. I love NorCal too, but SoCal all the way. Dr. Sean Bourke, thank you so much. Thank you for this informative and delightful conversation. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. All right. So lots of questions that Scottie and I pelted in.
And then the internet went out. Glad it happened at the end.
At him, and I'm sure the viewers hope you guys learned a thing. All the women are XX chromosome, men are XY, and we have a little bit of both. We have both testosterone and estrogen, all of us, and my mind was just blown, Scottie, thinking, oh my God, that maybe what we think are psychological problems are not actually psychological problems, that they might actually just be hormonal. Just, wow, mind blown.
It will make a difference on you as a couple that both of us have been on. I will give warning for men. They have the pill form, they have the shot form. Most women are pills and creams. You have to find what works for you. There are side effects, especially for the men. So you definitely do have to experiment around, but you have to find somebody that you trust. And that's why, Dr. Bourke, it's great that he has online. I go to my normal medical doctor, but she's a female, and she saw immediately when I came in, she said, before we put you on anti-migraine medicine, cramping medicine, let's do some blood work. You might just be in the beginning stages. And she was 100% correct. And she said with those women, because our careers are lasting longer, while it's stressful in the home, we're having to balance more, that more and more, this is becoming a major issue with women in their 40s and 50s that luckily can be taken care of. And this is not pharmaceutical. This falls under holistic. This comes from a holistic pharmacy that these are mixed in. So that's why, because people have to understand you're not feeding evil pharma. You're actually, in a lot of these cases, doing what it naturally comes.
Right, that your body was already prepackaged with when you were delivered. That's probably the best way to put it. Is you're just replacing what God already imbued into your body. So that's you're just trying to it's a balancing act. That's all anything ever is, right? Like, I'm not, as you know, Scottie, you've known me for many years, I'm not a diet person.
You're not.
I'm everything in moderation, and there's a balance. And I do believe in eating healthy, but I also believe in having my tiramisu when I want it. And I believe that's okay. And I believe a lot of women, especially in our age group, feel pressured into this TikTok look of perfection. Their homes have to look a certain way. Their bodies have to look a certain way, and they have to feel and act and behave a certain way. And we feel, I think more so now trapped into this new stereotype of what, we look at Kim Kardashian, right? I mean, she's in our age group. The women in our age are thinking, okay, that's what I need to be like. No, that's not what we need to be like. We need to be the best of us, the best of our individual self. The best Manila is not going to be the same as the best Scottie, and vice versa. And I think that's the message I want the viewers to hear from this, is take this away as my best is not the same as your best is not the same as my best. And all the husbands out there, every husband, every man, every body is different. And I just hope people actually start doing some research, and especially more into this hormonal stuff, because I feel like our generation was like the Xanax generation, and everybody wanted to give you some pill because, oh, you're crazy.
Mhm.
You're crazy. So take this SSRI, take this, whatever. And now, after this conversation with Dr. Bourke, is that maybe you're not crazy. Maybe there's a hormonal imbalance, and it's not a neurological problem. Not saying it is or it isn't, but maybe explore something else.
And I think the bigger issue is I don't want to waste my money. I don't want to be going, like you said, we talked about voodoo. I want to make sure that what I'm doing is actually being effective. I'm not just throwing,
you don't want to spin your wheels in the mud.
The cosmetic industry, there's thousands of dollars that go into wrinkle prevention creams and everything. So
I've wasted thousands of dollars on the expensive creams, and just that's not it. Actually, it's from the inside out, which is why I've always said, like, good balanced diet, lots of water, get lots of sleep. And now that we're at this bridge to cross, right, in middle age, maybe this is something myself I would consider, is like hormone treatment, hormone replacement, because I in my heart, I still feel like I'm 25-year-old Manila.
Right.
And I want my body,
in my opinion, but that's just me.
Well, you're very sweet. Likewise, I think our generation has the spirit,
Right.
but we need to make sure our bodies stay up with where we are here, right? Like, and here.
And don't give up. I think that was the other thing. I watched my mother give up because life got so hard. I mean, by the time
I saw that too with my mom.
You get that. By the time that I get it, losing a parent, losing a spouse, losing kids going to that next phase of life, it's all extremely, and it's easier to give up, and you just want to stay. It used to say, I get self-care, but they're now saying, don't stay in bed all day. If you're going through a lot, if you're stressed out, don't stay in bed. Don't have a glass of wine. Go for a walk.
Yes.
Go read a book, but go interact, go have a lunch, go be with somebody that makes you happy. Go do something that don't
curl up on the couch.
Don't do it. That actually has the reverse effect. But once again, it's not a one size fits all. But I think that is most important, is that we can strive to fight this and continue to live. But like I said, life comes at you fast. Life comes at you hard. I mean, it's that you're not going to feel bad at times. It's how you handle it is what makes us different. I think we're more educated in today's world to be able to handle it.
Yeah. And I think this is why I wanted, I kicked the boys out for this session and had Scottie Nell Hughes be my guest co-host, because this one is for the women out there. And for you men that are like, I don't want to pay attention to any of this. You have women in your lives. You have sisters, you have aunts, you have nieces, you have daughters, you have wives, you have girlfriends. Have them have a listen. Have them. I mean, this is a real conversation with a real doctor, and real talk about what women are going through, and you men, have to understand, have to have a better grasp of what our bodies are going through. And no, it's not like we're just being bitches. We're not choosing to be a bitch.
Sometimes, maybe. I'm just kidding.
Sometimes, yes.
Happy wife, happy life.
I'm a wife. I know.
Happy wife, happy life. And it's hard. And not to bring us back to politics, but present day situation, the headlines make you depressed, and will make both genders depressed. What is going on?
All genders
are depressed and scared, and all the emotions that go into it. So yes, This does have an impact. Everything does flow back and forth, but you can either give in or you can fight. And by golly, Manila, we haven't stopped fighting on other fronts. So why are we going to stop fighting on this front?
Here, Scottie. That's it. So that's it for us on this special episode of the TMI Show. Big thanks to Scottie Nell Hughes for co-hosting with me, because what other girlfriend could I have on
That would be so fun.
that could be so honest?
You showed my hormonal cream. I mean, you cannot get more reality TV than showing your hormones. I'm just saying.
What other
Nobody else
girlfriend
would
could I
want to see
have
anymore.
from TV that would be this open and honest about this phase of life? And as we move forward and try to be the best we can, and this is that conversation. So we appreciate Dr. Bourke being on. Scottie Nell, we'll have you back another time as guest co-host, because we can't have you getting rusty.
No, we can't. I don't.
And you're just a lot of fun. So
and like I said, we'll tackle these issues, and we'll tackle all those issues that other people don't want to tackle. I have no problem, right? That is the one great thing about getting older, ladies. That filter.
Mm-hmm.
But we need that. We need
ID gaff, as the kids say, right?
Exactly. And that's
ID gaff.
Exactly.
Girls, let me tell you, when you get older, Scottie's right. The one thing that goes right out the window first is all the F's you used to give.
Bye. Beautiful. Bye.
Bye. Bye, F's. They're gone.
They're gone. They're gone.
In your 40s.
Mm-hmm.
They're gone. Bye.
That's the only place that you have an F is in your age, because the rest of it is you realize what's important. And people like Manila is important to me. So I'll always come on and be frank.
Thank you, Scottie. I hope you guys enjoy. Please share this episode with all the women important in your life, so that way they have a better understanding of what's happening to their bodies as well. Because somewhere out there, there's a woman that you love in your life. I hope it's your mom. Just saying.
I mean, it's you at this point.
Love you, Scottie. Thank you. Bye. Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I got to play our out cue music. Don't you leave, Scottie.
Okay, I'm not.
See, you're getting rusty. You're forgetting
It's
that
the fog. It's the brain fog. I'm going to blame it on the hormones.
Brain fog. Got to cue the out cue music.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.